Hello again, my lovelies. Pirate Scum Gaming here. And tonight, we'll be talking about my Bozeman Intel Heavy Frigate and the surgical strikes build that I put on it. Now, the reason I have chosen this ship to review tonight is because, as you all know, during Admiralty Week, on various live streams from other content creators, the Responder Bundle was given away, and this ship is a part of the Responders Bundle. And in my opinion, this is the best part of that Responders Bundle. This is a really great ship. You put a real solid surgical strikes build on it. It's fast, it's maneuverable, it hits real hard, and it's just really cool looking. So let's go ahead and jump into the build. That way you guys can see just how good this ship really is. Okay, starting with the forward weapons, a pretty standard surgical strikes setup. We have the Terran Task Force Phaser dual heavy cannons, and the reason we're using these are quite powerful, and they have a proc on it where damage output is scaled up to 200% when enemies reach 25% hull or less. And these will show up at the top, one of the top numbers for your Parse. Next up is the Phaser wide angle dual heavy beam bank from the Discovery reputation. This is also a very heavy hitter. And the nice thing about this weapon is its damage ramps up the more it fires. This is also a part, as you can see, of the Lorca's Ambition 3-piece set. And we'll go over that when we go start talking about the Locator console. Next is the Terran Task Force Phaser Beam Array. This is the other weapon available from the Terran Task Force reputation. These do not stack, but they are individually on their own, they do quite well. This also hits very hard. And just like its dual heavy cannon counterpart, damage increases 200% on enemies at 25% hull or less. Another very heavy hitting weapon. And that's what you want on your surgical strikes build. You want the most heaviest hitting weapons that you have. Next up is the wide arc phase cannons. This is a Lobi purchase. This is part of the Enterprise set. And the reason you're using this one is on hit, if target's nearest shield facing is down, plus 10% energy weapon damage for 10 seconds, plus 25% projectile weapon damage for 10 seconds. Does not stack or refresh until duration ends. And this pairs very, very well with some traits and a console I'm using. We'll talk about that momentarily. Last but not least on the forward weapons is your Dark Matter Quantum Torpedo. This is an all-around heavy-hitting torpedo. It's great for all types of builds because the dark matter dissolution is quite powerful, and it works very, very well with chemosat-laced weaponry. And another cool thing about this weapon, and we're going to discuss this in a little more detail when we talk about the set bonus, is that when you have the 3-piece equipped, this turns into a 360-degree firing weapon. Now, the torpedoes that shoot out are not affected by any firing mode, but still, you're just going to have purple torpedoes shooting all over the place. And the cool thing about that is, and I don't know if you realize this or not, when you're doing Kittimer Vortex, when you're facing down Dinatra, when she cloaks, these torpedoes will continue firing in her general direction. So you get an idea where she's going to go. That's cool. Next up is for the Space Corps, we have Elite Fleet Intervention Protomatter Deflector. I use this on all of my builds. We're using it for the Coal Crit mod, which is crit severity and crit chance. Next is from the competitive rep is the prevailing innervated impulse engines. These work off of weapon firing modes and it increases flight speed and flight turn rate. So this helps you get around very, very quickly. Next is the Revolutionary Warp Core. This is from the Imperial Rift set. And good news about that, that was just added to Mud's Market. So if you missed out on the event to get this, now's your chance to get it from Mud's Market. And the reason we're using this is its 21.3 Starship weapon amplification improves critical hit severity with weapons. Next is the Tilly's Review Pending Modified Shield. The reason you're using this particular shield ray, and you'll find this on all of my builds, your weapon attacks cause enemy shields to receive 11.5% increased damage for 10 seconds. That's pretty big. Aft weapons, I have the Agony Phaser Beam Omni. This is one of the Agony Phasers are probably the best phaser beam rays in the game at the moment, because they have a proc on them where they have a 2.5% chance disable for 2.5 seconds. It's pretty cool when it goes off. It looks like the enemy has been hit with the Agony Field. Next up is the Trilithium Enhanced Omnidirectional Phaser Beam. This comes from the Beyond the Nexus mission. And we're using this for its 2.5% chance to gain 10% firing cycle haste for energy weapons. Last but not least is the Kinetic Cutting Beam. This is a part of the Omega Weapon Amplifier 2-piece set that gives you minus 500% energy weapon cost. And don't ask me to explain it because I really can't. How you can get more than 100% of something. I don't know. That blows my mind. But anyway. Devices. We have deuterium surplus. I've talked about this before in my other vids. A quick rundown. In order to get your hands on this, go into your mission journal, look up the Spectre's Arc, do the skirmish mission. That shouldn't take you more than 15-20 minutes. Afterwards, run south of Drozana Station to the Alhana system, do the patrol there. You defend the deuterium surplus from some invading Cardassians, knock them off, get your rewards, and then this will be added to your engineering R&D. This was a huge gift from the devs when they added it to the engineering R&D, because now you can make as many of these as you want instead of being limited to only 5 a day. Next is the Kobayashi Maru Transponder. This was an event reward. This just gives some random buffs. Next is your Energy Amplifier. This, you can see, is bonus energy weapon damage. This comes from your Beam R&D, unlocks at level 15. Next, Reactive Armor Catalyst. This is from Broken Circle mission. This is a pretty good oh crap button. If you're taking damage, go ahead and pop this. Another cool feature about this particular thing is this adds temporary hit points. Now when you're doing runs like Borg Disconnected and you're trying to free the Borg vessels that are trying to get away from the collective, if you're got a lot of plasma fire on you, pop one of these, you'll get temporary hit points and you'll be able to free the Borg vessels. Next is the Lorca's Custom Fire Control. We get some crit chance, some weapon power setting, and a massive 157.5 Starship shield pen. And its shield pen is important. So let's go ahead and look at that 3P. Okay, first we have the War Discretion 2-piece set on crit plus 1% crit severity buff for 20 seconds. Stacks up to 25. So that's a pretty good chunk of crit severity there. And then there's that 3-piece I was talking about. Automatically launch 1 dark matter quantum torpedo at enemies below 50% health, max 1 torpedo per second, and no more than 1 torpedo per enemy. So basically you get a 360-degree torpedo launcher. And I like that set. Alright, consoles, we have the Weaponized Helical Torsion, got this from the legendary Glenn. Phaser damage and crit severity, that is what we're using for. Its active is okay, but it's the passive that we're looking at. Again, another console where we're just looking at the passive, the interphasic rift generator. This is from the Mirror Warship. Get some crit severity and some hull capacity, which that feeds into Tyler's duality, which we'll talk about momentarily. The active is pretty good too. Yeah, it does well for itself. I mean, no, it's not going to break any records. No, it's not going to cause a massive amount of DPS, but it's still worth using. Next up is the Bioneuron Fusion Circuits. This is one of the oldest consoles in the Lobby store. You'll find this on all of my builds. You got a nice chunk of hull capacity, some control expertise, which is important because we have some control abilities that we're using, and a big chunk of crit severity. Next is the immolating phaser lance. One thing I can say about this is that this thing hits like a runaway freight train. It's incredibly overpowered. It's just amazing. I absolutely love this console. It comes from the Deimos Pilot Escort. Next is the M6 computer. This comes from the Tier 3 Temporal Escort. You can get that for about 75k to lithium from the ship vendor. The reason is because we have 15% bonus all damage, 25% cooldown reduction for tactical bridge officer abilities, and 20% firing cycle haste for all weapons. Next is the Dynamic Power Redistributor Module, the DPRM. This comes from the Atlas Prototype Dreadnought. Its passives are okay, but it's the active that we are using it for. Plus 40% bonus damage, well above 80% hull, and if you have a good quality tank, that's not going to be a problem. Plus 100 bonus damage resistance rating, and a massive 500% hull regen. You could basically out-heal anything that's thrown at you so long as this is active. This is the ultimate oh crap button. Next, Domino from the Bajoran Interceptor. You get some phaser damage, which is nice because this is an all phaser build. But it's the active that we're looking at. 25% firing cycle haste for energy weapons, 25% bonus all damage, 25% recharge speed for bridge officer abilities, and 100% recharge speed for torpedoes. Next is the console from this ship, the Tachyon Net Drones, also known as the D-20 of Doom for all you gamers out there. So you get some crit chance, you get a nice chunk of crit severity, some Starship perception, which is, I'm not concerned about that. The active it's really good. Minus 41 damage resistance rating on critical hit, applies 2900 kinetic damage, which ignores shields, and knocks shields offline for 3 seconds. And during that 3 seconds is an eternity in an ISE, so you can do a lot of damage in 3 seconds. And once the shields are offline, all that other stuff that goes directly at the hull and does more damage when there's no shields, like the Enterprise phase cannons, yeah, it's party time now. And last, we have the tactical consoles, which I'm using vulnerability exploiters, which boost crit severity. These are from your fleet spire. Skill tree has not changed, same skill tree I've been using. If you want to take a look at this, pause the video now, take a screenshot. If you want to use it, go right ahead. Moving on along here, look at my specialization. Specializations are Intel Officer and Temporal Operative. Same thing I've been using. Alright, it's time to look at some traits. First up, we have a good day to die. This turns your go down fighting into a reusable buff. If you're a tactical captain and you don't have this, you need to get it. It's not terribly expensive on the exchange, and it's completely worth using. Intel Agent Attaché on Weapon Critical Strike. Restore 2% of Captain ability, and you are going to be critting like crazy. Self-modulating fire. Shield pen, not much to talk about there. Superior beam training, bonus beam weapon damage. Terran targeting systems, crit severity. Fleet coordinator, bonus all damage per team member. On a team of 5, you will get 10% bonus all damage. The Boimler effect, this is our primary means of ability cooldown. Now, Boimler has a bad habit of slacking off. He starts daydreaming, thinking of his own adventures, but luckily I have some duty officers to keep him on task. They stand around, they admit they see him slacking off, they just crack him upside the back of the head and tell him to pay attention. Next is Adaptive Offense. Crit chance becomes crit severity. Unconventional systems. This is the big one. Using a control bridge officer ability, and I'm using several of those, gives minus 7% recharge on universal consoles, and you saw that I'm using quite a few of those. Innocuous. This is minus threat gen because you don't want enemies shooting at you, and plus 5% crit severity. Onward to Starship traits. We have emergency weapon cycle from the Morrigu, the Arbiter, or the Kurak. On emergency power to weapons, minus weapon power cost, weapon firing speed, you get 50% weapon power cost reduction, and 20% firing cycle haste. Big important. If you're not using this on an energy weapon build, you really should be. Next is overpowered and overgunned from the legendary Defiant. Minus 15% weapon power cost and firing cycle haste. Next is supercharged weapons. This comes from the tactical scimitar, I believe the Flambard. Firing a torpedo grants 1 stack of supercharged buff. Supercharged stacks up to 3 times. Directed energy weapons gain 10% damage for 20 seconds, 1.5% crit severity, or crit chance rather, for 20 seconds, and 6.6% crit severity for 20 seconds. Next is Assault Formation Theta. This comes from the legendary Talis. Attack pattern Omega. Decloaking grants torpedo high yield, weapon crit chance, turn rate. At crit chance, that's not quite accurate. When activating attack pattern Omega or decloaking, grant torpedo high yield 3 plus 160 Starship weapon amplification. That is crit severity, not crit chance. And 20% flight turn rate. Next is Vanguard Specialist. This comes from the legendary Bug Ship. Its name is too long for me to remember, so it's legendary Bug Ship for me. Specialist Bridge Officer abilities that apply weapon modification have their recharge times reduced by 33% and their duration extended by 5%. This is your Surgical Strikes extension trait. And last but not least, Carrier Wave Shield Hacking. This is something I've been playing with. Tractor Beam or Intel BOFF abilities cause shields offline. And if you're using Tractor Beam, it's 30% kinetic damage with Tractor Beam. I've been playing around with this. I'm really kind of liking it so far. So whether or not I'm going to keep it on here remains to be seen. I still got to do a little more testing with it, but so far it's staying. Space reputation. We have magnified firepower. This comes from the Gamma reputation. 6.3% bonus weapon damage. From the Dyson rep, advanced targeting systems, crit severity. From the temporal rep, controlled countermeasures, bonus energy weapon damage, and projectile damage on controlled targets. Usually on my ISE runs, I do have a controller on the team, so this plays in pretty big. Next is Tyler's Duality. Crit chance based on hull capacity. So the more hull capacity you have, the more crit chance you're going to get. Now, like on a standard beam overload build, yeah, this plays in pretty big, but on surgical strikes that rely on crit severity, you still want it for the crit chance buff, but it doesn't play in as much. And last, precision for a little bit of extra crit chance. Alright, bridge officer stations. First up, we have chemosite-laced weaponry. This plays in with the dark matter quantum torpedo. Torp spread 2 to get those dark matter quantum torpedoes around. And attack pattern Omega 1 to proc assault formation Theta. On the control front, we have tractor beam. This procs carrier wave shield hacking and is also an uncon proc. Same with scramble sensors. This is an uncon proc. Also, gravity well is an uncon proc. Kind of sensing the theme here. Here we have a couple of intel abilities, viral impulse burst and electromagnetic pulse probe. Both of these are, surprise, uncon procs. Here we have distributed targeting to get our beam arrays bouncing around. Emergency power to weapons to proc emergency weapon cycle. Emit unstable warp bubble. This is one of 2 engineering control abilities, the other being eject warp plasma. This is a freebie from Broken Circle. Next is ionic turbulence. This is another intel ability as well as an uncon proc. And last but not least, we have the main event, energy weapon surgical strikes 3. Alright, let's take a look at my duty officers. First up is Bozeman. He is my projectile weapon officer, stacking crit severity buff on firing projectiles. Then there's Stacy, and another energy. This is one of my energy weapon officers. Chance for stacking crit severity buff on firing energy weapons. Next is one of my cooldown buffs that is in charge of keeping Boimler in line. On use of engineering abilities, 15% chance to improve crit severity by 20%. And on use of intel abilities, 30% chance to improve weapon armor pen by 50. Yeah, this one's not so much keeping Boimler in line, but hey, she'll walk along, crack him in the back of the head anyway. Next up is 2447. On use of tactical abilities, 15% chance, set power levels to maximum for 5 seconds. This procs quite often, I've found. And I'm not using any work abilities, so that doesn't play into it. And here is one of my cooldown DOFFs. On TAC, 15% chance reduce intelligence bridge officer ability by 50%, and vice versa for intel. This guy literally does stand behind Boimler and, smacks him beside the back of the head when he's not paying attention. Also standing on the other side is 4747. On use of science, 15% chance reduce intel by 50% and vice versa for intel. Alright, that's pretty much it for the overall build. Next up is the ISE demonstration as well as Parse explanation. So sit tight, and we'll get to the boom booms. I'll catch you on the flip side. Welcome back, my lovelies. Let's go ahead and look at this parse from that ISE run. Good ISE run, no one died, mission accomplished, and we left the Borg in smoldering heaps. I am, of course, at James Bryce, and the DPS for the run was 521.02k. That is outstanding for a surgical strikes build. I am happy with that. And that goes to show you that this build is capable of really laying down the punishment. Along from me from the ride was my good friend Andrew at Input. He was doing control for the run. Pulled 390.73k. Well done, Andrew. Your control build is coming along very nicely. I'm very proud of you. Tanking the run was at Lord Ice. Respectable 182. And tanking stats were 81% damaging, 88% attacking. Well done, Ice. Ice is one of my tanking students, and Ice just keeps getting better all the time. Keep up the good work, buddy. Also, along with that, at Talon here. Talon is responsible for me owning the 47 to 47. She gifted that to me. Thank you so much, Tay. I very much appreciate that. And she pulled in a very respectable 159k. Well done, Talon. You're getting better and better all the time. And running support was at Mikey, also known as Mad Dog Mikey on YouTube and on Twitch. Go check him out. And check him out on YouTube. Smash that subscribe button like it owes you money. And ring that bell. That way you know when Mikey drops more of his vids. Also, give him a follow on Twitch. That way you know when he goes live. And also tell him Pirate Scum Gaming sent you. Well done, Mikey. Let's go ahead and look at the individual player analysis. And just like I said, Terran Task Force Phaser Dual Heavy Cannons came in at the top with the max one hit for the run of 503.3k under Surgical Strikes 3. It did the most damage. That's not surprising. Phaser Wide Angle Dual Heavy Beambank came in number 2 on the parse. Third is the Terran Task Force Phaser, followed up by the Wide Arc Dual Heavy Phase Cannons, and then the Phaser Beam Array. This is the Agony Phaser. Here is your Trilithium and the Kinetic Cutting Beam. So yeah, this did outstanding. I am very, very happy with these results. Emulating Phaser Lance weighed in at just under 330k. That's very good. But yeah, this did an outstanding job. We got the job done. It made molten metal out of the enemy, and I could not be happier with it. So overall, this build delivered just as I said it would. And if you were a recipient of one of the free giveaway responder bundles, I highly encourage you to build a Surgical Strikes build on your Bozeman. But not just the Bozeman, get yourself the Fleet version. You get yourself an extra console slot. It's well worth it, and then exit up. This is an outstanding ship. It delivers, it's reliable, it's fast, it's maneuverable, and I highly, highly recommend it. So like I said, if you got the responder bundle, get the Bozeman, arm it up, take it out for a spin, put Surgical Strikes on it, you will not be disappointed. And you know what? I'd like to hear what you guys think about this ship. For those that got it from the responder bundle, let's talk about it in the comment section below. I highly encourage discussion regarding this video and this ship. So I'd like to hear what you think. And also, don't forget to do the usual YouTube things. Smash that subscribe button like it owes you money. Ring that bell, the big old sledgehammer. That way you guys know when I drop more content, when I go live, or I have more discussion posts put up. So that being said, this has been Pirate Scum Gaming, and as always, don't go by the book, think like a pirate. And I will catch you next time.
Human! Play, damn Human!